Welcome. Here we're going to look at the funding tab of the Compassheet model and how we input the different assumptions and how to use the different types of funding within the model. So to start off with, we're going to look at any opening balances that we've brought forward from loans that we have. So if you look at the top left hand side of the tab, we'll see we've got existing loans 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we haven't got any existing loans, these opening balances would all be 0. If you can see that these are coloured green, which the little instruction here says that the data in green cells are brought from the opening balance sheet. So if we just click briefly on the opening balance sheet, we can see that existing loan 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If there's any figures in here, these will be brought into the funding tab. If there aren't any existing loans, these will be blank, so there'll be no figures brought forward. And just a reminder that these are the balances at the start of the forecast, not necessarily the time that you're inputting them. So if we just go back to the funding, so these are the balances. If there are any loans there, what we input here is the monthly payments that you make and the number of months remaining. From those two figures, the model will calculate how much of it is interest and how much of it is the capital that's being repaid and feed that through into the rest of the model. So the interest will work through into the profit side and the capital will work through onto the sort of balance sheets. You can see the amount of loan that's being reduced each month, and it'll calculate that for you. So for any loan balances that are brought forward, you simply put in what the monthly payment is and the number of months remaining, and you can get that from from a loan statement, and that's the number of months remaining from the start of the forecast, not necessarily from the time that you're inputting. So that takes care of any loans that you have at the beginning of the model. If we then go to the right hand side, you can see there's 3 tabs here for new loans, invoice discounting, or new equity. At the moment, these are set to no, and the reason these are set to no, if you notice, there's a lot of this sheet that's greyed out, and the reason for that is to not confuse what's tabs that you don't have to fill in. So if we check, there's a drop-down box on each of these with a yes, no. So if you're not having any new loans during the period of the forecast, leave it at no. Similarly with invoice discounting and similarly with new equity. So if you're not having any of those, leave all those at no, and that's it. You've done the funding. You've purely done the new loan. The existing loans that have come in. Put in a figure for the interest rate that's paid, that you pay on overdrafts, and the interest rate that you receive on credit balances. Probably been a bit too optimistic on that one at 2.5% on credit balances. Probably nearer to 0. But if we are taking out some new loans, if we convert that to yes, you'll see suddenly these you can now input on. We can give the new loan a name, so it might be a mortgage. We can put the start date of the loan, so we're going to put that 1st of the 6th, 21. Put the amount that we're going to borrow, fixed payment, how much the loan payment is in total per month, and the length of the loan. If we wanted to call that for the fixed asset, that start date, and the amount that we're going to borrow, the length of the loan, and the number of months that that's going to be over. And these, similar to the existing loans, that's going to calculate the split between the capital and the interest for us as we go down. So you can have up to 5 new loans starting throughout the period of the forecast. Invoice discounting, if we activate that, we see there's a default interest rate that we pay and default of the amount borrowed. So in this case, we're looking at 80% invoice discounting. If we just scroll down here slightly, just show you here. If we go back to no, these boxes are greyed out. If we go to yes, the white, so we can input. If we put that at 90%, if you notice all these boxes for what the percentage of invoice value borrowed defaults to 90. Change that to 80, it assumes it's 80 for the period of the forecast. We do have an override facility. So if at any point during the 3 years that percentage of invoice discounting you want to change, so for the first 3 months it might be slightly lower, we can override that. So anything with the blue tabs we can input, and that feeds through to the grey tabs, which is the amount actually used in the forecast. Anything that's blank will go to the default figure that's in this box. So it might be that for risk reasons that the invoice discounting company will only give 70% for the first 3 months, and then it increases to 80% after that. So this will then feed through the model and see what the cash impact of that is. And we can change that at any period during the 3 years. So if you wanted to see what the impact of the cash was of going from 70 to 80 to 90, you could put 70 all the way through year 1, 80 for year 2, and 90 for year 3, for instance. So that's the invoice discounting. Equity, if we wanted to switch that on, change that to a yes. Go further down here. See there's an equity tab here. Anything with a blue you can input. So for instance, in the 4th month we think there's going to be £150,000 worth of equity coming in. That will put the cash coming in that month and show that as share capital and premium coming in on the balance sheet in that month as well. So we're looking at the cash and the balance sheet impact. So if you're having a round 1 coming in there of 150,000, and then in year 3, for instance, coming in at £500,000 coming in there, you'd put that in year 3. So the equity side comes in, and that's at the bottom of the funding sheet. Any figures that you put in there will still be live, so you take those out if you don't want to do it. Just because this is blanked out doesn't ignore them. It's just at the start of the model it blanks it out to stop you using them. So if you're playing with it, it doesn't actually kind of zero them for you if you change that back to a no. So that's the overview of how to use the funding sheet.